Hi everyone, I'm Bianca.
And I'm Rosina, and welcome to
Twins in Stitches.
So we have our first embroidery tutorial for you all.
Yes, it's super exciting. We're going to today be making this really beautiful Immaculate Heart of Mary embroidery, and you can replace the charm for any that you'd like. Mine's just the Immaculate Heart, but it's really lovely and super easy to make. I took about 5 or 6 hours to make it, and all the steps are in this video.
And we actually just passed the feast day of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, so really perfect timing. So yeah, I think Bianca's going to show you how to do it now, so
Yeah,
let's
get
start.
started.
Yeah.
For this project, you will need various things. Firstly, I'm going to be using an embroidery hoop. Mine is about 15 centimeters, the diameter, and it's just a nice embroidery hoop. You can unscrew it, obviously, and the middle part comes out. And this is where you hold your fabric. Now, I'm going to be presenting my project on the hoop, so I'm going to be keeping the hoop for presentation. Then, you're also going to need a medal. This is the one I'm using. This is the Immaculate Heart of Mary. I got this one in just a Catholic bookshop. So here it is. This one's super beautiful. It's coloured. You can use any kind you want. So something else you obviously need are threads. These are the embroidery threads I have. I'm not sure where they're from. I've had them from ages, but you can find them in basically any craft shop. And this is the set I have. Now I've already selected some colours. I want the colours to match the medal. So firstly, because we're going to be doing plants and vines, I have selected 2 shades of green. These ones, one lighter, one darker. And for the actual flowers, I found this nice light pink, this purpley colour, and this blue. Now, I think it's very important to give yourself a few ideas to work with, because originally I was thinking of sort of more ready, but then I like these ones. You'll also need a needle. This is the one I use. It's got quite a large eye hole to let in thread. Honestly, any needle will do. I'm going to be working with 2 strands of thread, so that should be able to easily come through that hole. And we obviously can't forget the fabric. This is the fabric I'm using. It's a really lovely cotton fabric. Now I've cut out my fabric. As you can see, the hoop fits very nicely in there. I'm going to want to do my design first because I find it a lot easier to draw on the fabric once it's flat rather than on the hoop. While it is still flat on the hoop, it's just harder. So I'm going to position it roughly in the middle and just mark it around the corners. You can use a normal fabric pencil, but I honestly find normal pencils work better. So that's what I'm going to do. And once I've got that in place, I might just do a quick marking of where this will be in the middle. It doesn't have to be 100% precise yet, but just to get an idea. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to freehand a design. Usually you could trace the design, however, I'm personally going to just draw it by hand because this is quite like a nice floral design, which I feel comfortable enough drawing by hand. Alright, so now my design is drawn out. You can always trace this. I would definitely do videos in the future on how to directly trace a design from paper onto an embroidery, which is super easy. I'll do that in the future. However, I freehand drew this one because it's quite simple and it looks alright so far. I think definitely with embroidery I do end up adding often as I go along, but I'll definitely stick to this for now. So now we've got the base done, we're going to go ahead and grab our embroidery hoop. So in order to put a fabric in an embroidery hoop, you have to unscrew it pop it in, make sure it's as central as you can get it. This is not the final, you know, you can always unscrew it and put it back on, so if it's not central, no worries. It's looking pretty central, yes. So I'm just going to make sure it's the way I want it, here. And I'm just going to tighten the top, like this. Tighten it, just to get it tight. And you want to tighten it because now your fabric is very nice and taut. It's not moving anywhere. And I'm just tapping it so that you can see that it's kind of like bouncy. So I'm going to start by cutting like a 30 centimeter length of the first thread, and I'm going to use the green colour first. And for this thread, I only want to use 2 strands. Now, as we can see, threads come in strands of 6. So if I split them up a bit, you can see there are 6 threads. I'm going to work with 2. You can work with as many as you want, but 6 is quite a bit. And 2 gives a more delicate design, and I almost always work with 2. So I'm going to pull this apart and grab these 2 with 2. So I'm going to pull this apart and grab these 2. Amazing. So now I'm going to thread the needle. Here it is, and I'm just going to insert the thread through it, if I manage to. This usually takes a small while. You can also use a needle threader, but perfect, there. Now what we're going to do is we're just working with 1 thread. So I'm going to go ahead and knot one of the ends, just one, not both. So when I say 1 thread, I mean with a double strand, but together. So I'm just going to wrap it around my finger and just do a knot, as I'd always do. But once I get here, I'm going to twist. And then with my right hand, I grab this thread and bring it to the bottom of the needle, and that makes quite a big knot, so this is definitely not coming out. Okay, so now I'm going to have a look at my pattern. So the pattern I've drawn, this is what it looks like. These bits here, these clusters of 3 and these ones of 6, these are my flowers, and these green ones with lines, these are my leaves. Now I did draw these lines just to make it look like a leaf. I'm not actually going to do the line inside. So I'm going to start with some of the vine and a leaf. So for instance, I'm going to start up here. So grabbing this needle, we have to make sure that the side with the knot is longer than that one that's loose. So what we're going to do is through the back here, just through 1 layer of fabric, make sure these are separate. We're going to bring the needle up through here. Now this might take a bit of poking around, that's completely normal. I end up poking around most of the time. So once it's through, we're just going to bring it straight through. The stitch I'm going to be using for the vine is stem stitch. So this is done by, you bring the thread up through the work, and then you bring it down about 1/2 centimeter. Perfect. And it goes back down. Now from the other side, we pull the needle up, okay? However, we do not fully pull it all through. Once we have a tiny loop left, there it is, we are going to bring our needle in between these 2 stitches here and pull it all the way back Amazing. That's what it's looking like. We're going to do the same underneath. I'm going to go back down to the vine. Put the needle back through the top. Pull it out through the back. However, as we get to having a little loop at the end, we're going to bring it up through in between these two stitches, in between the line. And this line has already been drawn. We bring it back, up. Amazing. And we can repeat one more time, going up to the leaf here. Insert, down, bring it through, and then we bring the thread back through the middle, and you can keep the thread to the same side, so I'm kind of keeping it to the right, like the hoop, and I bring it through. So as we can see, we have formed a really lovely stitch here that's sort of interweaving itself, looking like a stem. And I am going to do the stem on this whole entire project for now, and I'll do the leaves after. So I'm just going to continue, and I want to show you because this stem continues here. So I'm going to go back down in a, here is where I came through, so I might go back down that first hole. Don't get it back the hole you were just in, because then you will undo the stitch. Perfect. Now I'm going to come out here, because this is where my line is drawn to come down here to the next part of the vine, and we do the exact same. Now I'm going to show you what to do when your thread runs out. We flip our work to the back, and we can see we're getting to the end. You want to finish when you have about 10 centimeters left of the thread, so that you can properly finish it off. I'm going to show you what I like to do. There are different ways, but I find it easiest to sew through the last stitch you've done. So you can see this is the most previous stitch. Actually this might be, but this one's tiny. But for this big stitch, go through and pull the needle up. Okay. Now I'm going to create this loop that we just made a knot, that we just put the thread through. So when we put the thread through the stitch, we have a loop. I'm going to push the needle back through this loop, and finally back through the last loop we created. So we're just putting it through all the last stitches we created, and there you've got a knot. You can do it again. So through the stitch, the last stitch you did, through this last loop you created, and then in the process of doing this, you create this second loop here. That's loop 1, that's loop 2. So now we're going to bring the needle back through this hoop. Pull it all, not formed, and that is definitely not coming undone. So now we finished the vine area. It's looking lovely. I do love this stitch because it does give that extra dimension, and it just looks gorgeous. So what we're going to do next is, seeing as we're still working with the green thread, we're going to do the leaves. Now this is the way I've done it and differentiated it. So I'll show you. These here are my leaves, and there are some clusters of 3 not these ones, but these ones that are leaves. So mainly leaves are these ones with the line in them, but there are other ones. So I'm going to grab my thread, which is currently right here, and I'm going to do this leaf. So to do the leaf, I'm going to place my needle on the tip of the leaf, there, and come down here and down to the middle. We are not doing stem stitch now, we're just going to do a fill. So I'm going to go straight down as if it were there. So straight here. Amazing. Now I'm just going to go adjacent to the stitch, but slightly lower, and go down again. Not in the same hole, but right next to it. There. Again, we go do the adjacent stitch to the one we just did. We make a hole coming up, we bring the needle up, and we bring it right down. So we're just doing a bunch of horizontal lines next to each other to fill the leaf. Now right at the end, I'm going to do just a little mini one. So we come up through the back to the front, to the right next to it, and then we put a horizontal line going down adjacent to our previous horizontal line. Now we do the same on the other side. We go up and down. And I do want to stress that for the leaf, because you want this sort of pyramid structure, with every new sort of horizontal line you do, you start at a lower position. So now I'm going to start at a lower position and start, instead of starting up here, like the last one, I'll start down here. Down and through to the horizontal line through. Again, up and horizontal line down. Amazing. As we can see, I've finished all the vine area, all the green, and I've decided that I would like to do my flowers in both the pinky, purpley and blue colour, because this will really complement the Mary medal. It's good just to, once you have the green down, to constantly check, because your ideas with the colours can change. So I'm going to start with the pink. I'm going to cut about the same as before, 30 centimetres, and we're going to again separate it into the 6 threads and grab 2 of them. So I've separated the threads into 2 and I've threaded the needle, and now I'm going to show you how to do the knot again. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the thread, wrap it round, make a small knot, like as if you're going to make a knot, and then you just twist and pull the knot to the bottom. There. Perfect. And make sure that the knotted side of the thread is longer than the other one. Now I'm going to go and work these flowers. So if we start with one of these, we're going to be doing the lazy daisy stitch for basically all of them. I'm going to come up into the middle. As you can see, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 petals. I come up to through the middle from the back, and I bring the needle up. Then I'm going to put the needle back down the exact same hole, but like before, I leave a loop. Now the placement of this is important, because you pull the loop down, and as we can see, this imitates the petal. To hold this in place, we are going to bring our needle up, depending on the size we want of the petal. So we bring the needle up and through, and we catch the petal with the thread underneath. Here you go. You can widen it out a little bit like that. And then you secure it in place by doing 1 stitch outside So right outside the loop, and you pull it down. Amazing. And now you can just open it up a little bit. So once we've done that first petal, we're going to do the next one, and we'll do it right next to it. So we can go back to the center. You can go into the same hole or a hole next to it, and we bring it through, we bring it back down, and then we bring the needle, we leave a gap, you can reopen it, and then we can bring the needle where we want the petal to form, and we fit the loop back in, and then we just place one stitch outside to secure it in place, and that looks amazing. Now we're going to go back into the middle, back down, then we go up, grab the thread, and then we just place a stitch outside to secure it. And we can do the same with this final one. You can do lazy daisy. This whole thing here is called a lazy daisy. You can do them with 5 or 6, kind of depends what you want. I think I'm with 5 today, I believe, although we'll see when we get to, once we've done the 5th one. If it looks empty, we can add another one. So, same thing, just put it through the loop. Lovely, make sure it's nice and kind of stretched out. And then we're going to place the needle outside to secure it in place. And make sure that's nice and stable there. And I'm going to put a 5th one in, yes, just around here, just to finish that bit off. So now this is coming here, we'll bring it back up through the loop and make the hole back down again. Amazing, and that looks so beautiful. You can just open up the petals a little bit if you'd like to. So that's how you make a lazy daisy. Now I'm going to be doing, I've placed 1, 2, 3, 4 lazy daisies. I'll be doing 2 in pink and 2 in blue. So this one will be in pink and then these 2 in blue. However, I do have stitches here that are groups of 3 using the same stitch. So I'll show you how to make those. So at the top of this vine, I'll insert the needle up and through. Now, I will place the needle down next to the hole next to it or through the same hole. I will put the needle up to the top of where I've drawn that loop. I'm going to grab the thread. Here you go. There. Sometimes it takes a bit of working around, but it's fine. There you go. Make it the size I want and then place the stitch outside. Amazing. So this is going to make a really lovely stitch. I'm going to do the same to the next side. Up through the middle, down through the middle, up to the end of a petal length, yarn through the gap in this needle, and you want to make sure, as you can see here, this is sort of looking a little bit twisted, so I want to remove this and untwist it round. So here. Amazing. And then we place, go to the size we want, and we place a stitch right outside. Amazing. And I'll do the same for the next stitch. Here, up, down, up through here, up. Amazing. There you go, and just make the hole slightly bigger and bring it through. And there you go. So that's basically how you get that done. That's looking really lovely. So now as I zoom out, I'm going to show you what it looks like, and that's really adding a really beautiful layer. I'm super happy with how that's looking. So I'll be doing a bit of blue here, a bit of blue here, sort of alternating round, but it doesn't have to be too perfect, just up to you. And I'll continue in this way. So now we can see we've finished the beautiful wreath design. I do love how I've used the pink and the blue just to really match the medal. For the medal, we're going to place it in the middle. We have this sort of extra loop, which as you can see here, from the opening, we can remove it as there's a bit of a hole in it here. So we want to take off this extra hoop. So, oh, I could just pull it off and it came off. You can loosen it. I loosened it with a pair of scissors. There you go. So this way there's just this tiny hole here, which just makes it look a lot cleaner. To sew the hole, to sew the middle via the hole, I'm going to use some green thread because this is kind of the base colour of my project. And I'm just going to put it in the middle. You can measure this or eyeball it. I think it's quite easy to tell. I'm going to pop that in the middle, and I'm going to bring the needle up through the hole and down the other side. Amazing. And I'm using 2 strands. You can use more, to be honest, because you need it to be very tight, but I'm just going to use 2 and go multiple times. So as I've said, I'm coming up through the back, through the hole, up and down the hole. So you put it right outside the pendant here. Once you've got it in a few times, you can check that it's straight, and in the middle. Alright, so now we've stitched on the medal. That's what the back's looking like. We are ready to finish the piece off. So in order to finish the piece off, we have to close the back, because I would like to present this hoop, sort of have it hanging on a wall, closed, like this. So I'm going to show you just how I like to do that. I am going to remove this needle that's there. We are going to unscrew the hoop. Now what you're going to need is another piece of fabric the equal size, like the exact same size as the front piece of fabric. I do want to say that you don't have to use the same fabric. I often use felt because that's quite nice to do, like a different coloured felt. But for this one, I wanted to keep it nice and simple. So this is what we currently have, we're working with. So it's got the hoop marks, indentations. I'm going to place this fabric underneath this top fabric here, like that. Now we're going to place the hoop underneath both of these. And we can put it back in the same position because it fits nicely there. We're going to unscrew this a little bit more, as now we have 2 pieces of fabric. And now we are going to pop the hoop on. As you can see, it's kind of a bit off, so off how it was before. So you can just redo it. It's super easy. It's a little bit fiddly, but it's good. And make sure the fabric is nice and taut, because that way you can just really, the design just looks 10 times better when it's very nice and taut. Okay, amazing. Now I'm thinking if I hang that on my wall, is that going to be straight? Because I'll put it like in a nail, and it will be. So that's looking great. Okay, so now I'm happy with how that is. I am going to screw that as tight as I can. I do want to say, if your hoops aren't the best quality, it gets very hard to screw them closed. So that is something just to consider. So that is super taut now. And as you can see, when you turn it over, the loose ends are covered. So that is why we put this extra piece of fabric. So now what we're going to do is we're going to gather the back. And it's going to end up looking sort of scrunched and gathered. However, this is too long, so I'm going to grab my scissors and cut around. I'm going to leave about 2 inches around it. So I've cut the back to look like this, and I want to keep it just super simple. So I'm going to grab some white thread. I'm using all 6 strands because you want it to be quite sturdy. I just put a knot at the end. Now I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to insert the needle here and bring it through. If you have a hard time threading the needle, you can use a needle threader. I personally, mine has quite a big hole, so it was fine to do so. Now I'm just going to stitch down and up, just like this. Pass the needle up and down, and I'm going to pull the needle through here, gently. And do be careful that it doesn't get wrapped around this metal part of the hook. Okay, as you can see, when we pull that, that starts to sort of gather. Amazing. And I'm just going to keep doing this for the whole entire hoop. So we go down, around, up, and we pull through. So I just go up and back through. And this has to be done with one consecutive piece of thread, because otherwise you need to get the whole entire thread to pull it in one piece. You're gonna have 2 pieces, it's gonna look messy, it's not gonna look good. So just one consecutive piece. It's a bit... Yeah, this is how I actually close all or most of my projects, unless I put it in a frame or something. But I do like keeping them in the hoop, because that way you can really see the texture of your work, and it's really lovely. So let's go through a few times. As you can see, it's kind of starting to look like a tart pan or something. And I think I've just cut the right amount of thread. I've just got a little bit extra, which is very satisfying. Okay, so now I get back to the beginning. I'm going to pull this as tight as I can, and this is as tight as I can here, as you can see. So just really getting all these bits in, and then I'm going to go back down here and just really pull that tight. And then I'm just going to, because there are 2 layers of fabric, I'll do the knot within the first layer so that you can't see it. So go up and up again, and I'm going to put the thread through this loop as we've been doing previously and pull it super tight. And I'll do that one more time, just adjacent to that. Up and through the loop. Oops, the thread came off the needle, but no worries. There. Just really pull that. And there you have it. Then I'm just going to cut the thread with some scissors. Here. And that is the back done. I'm just going to, if there are any frayed edges, the thing is, you can just cut them away a little bit, because you're not actually going to be touching it. You can pull them away and then they should be good. Or just cut like these ones, because, yeah. So that is what the back's going to look like. And that is the front, that really beautiful design. I am so happy with how this turned out. It's so gorgeous and simple, and I just love it. I think the medal is gorgeous, and I just think I've really complemented it with this really lovely design.
Alright, so thank you so much for watching. We hope you really loved this tutorial.
Yes, so hopefully now you know how to make this really beautiful embroidery piece, and there will definitely be a lot more embroidery tutorials, a lot more complex ones, but this is such a beautiful starting point.
Yes, and we'll also have a lot more sort of religious work as well that we'll be
Yes.
doing in different forms of craft, so we're really excited to bring that to you all as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye!